So I don't know what your background is, but personally speaking, I grew up lower income and then eventually like lower middle class. But basically, I was just never really around a lot of like wealth, right? I was never really around a lot of nice areas, nice cars, nice homes, and then even exposed to like just that environment. Being that that was kind of my like upbringing when I was younger, one of the things that was put on a pedestal for me was in my mind, I believe that if you made six figures, if you made $100,000 a year, then like you made it. Like life was stress free, like everything was good. And I'm here to tell you that that is not the case. So I want to share some perspective and some things that I've experienced along the way that hopefully can help you guys out. So with that being said, let's dive into it. The first thing I want to speak on is this perception that it's difficult to make money. Specifically like this pedestal that six figures had, or at least it did where I grew up. So just to give you some background, I grew up in Pasadena, Texas, and while there are definitely worse places out there, it's not like for an environment perspective. In the area I grew up, at least, you don't see a lot of people with money. You don't see a lot of the nice cars, a lot of the super nice homes. Everybody kind of has like a humble place, and there's nothing wrong with that. But for me, like all I would hear in that area is like this pedestal of making six figures. If you clear $100,000 a year, then life is set. You're gonna be in a good spot, and that it was almost impossible to do. It was almost like it took some highly educated person or a really special person to make that type of income. And that's not true. I want to share my personal experience and story because I think if I learned these lessons years back, it would have helped me set myself up to go years ahead of where I am today. In a previous video, I talked about growing your income. And for those of you that didn't watch, to give you a quick recap. Early on into my career of jobs, if you will, I started off as a receptionist at a junior high, making like $800 to $1,000 a month, super part-time. And I worked there for 2 years. So I was basically making around $12,000 to $13,000 a year on average. What happened was a buddy of mine referred me to get into the retail channel of sales. It was my first sales job ever. So I learned a couple skills, got intentional, and picked up a job in sales. And I think my first year in that role, I made somewhere around 48,000 or 52,000. Let's call it 50. So I went from making $13,000 to $50,000 in 1 year, just based off learning a skill and making a decision to get a little uncomfortable, and it paid off. Fast forward some time, I got the opportunity to go into more of a strategic corporate sales role where it was a business to business position. For those of you that don't know, B2B or business to business just means like Apollo. For those of you that don't know, B2B just is like one of those positions where you're cold calling, you're going door to door. And in my eyes, from my retail position, it was seen as a really challenging role. And it was something that I was, really nervous about because I knew how much you could make, but I also knew how hard it was. One of the things growing up that my dad used to always say, and sometimes I still hear it. So Pops, if you're listening, this is for you. One of the things he used to always tell me is, a number, it's no matter what you're looking for, whether that's the cost of a house, an income level, it's just a number. All you have to do is figure out how to get to that number or figure out how to get that number. And it's such a simple philosophy, but it's something that really opened my mind that, anything is really possible if you just put your mind to it. So my first year in that role, I cleared six figures. Now, I think it was barely over. I might have been like 102, 104, but it was six figures, and it was a huge accomplishment for me. I was 22 years old at the time, and it made me think, because it made me really just pause and think. If you look back, 4 years before that, I was making $12,000 a year. How do you go from making $12,000 a year to making $100,000 a year in 4 years? And the reason I share that is not to really not to brag because there's people doing crazier things out there, but it's just to show some perspective that, that can happen for me. Yeah, it can happen for you. And my hope is that it happens for you in a more condensed time frame by applying some of the lessons and maybe some of the experiences that I've gone through. Second item, I would lie to myself all the time in my early 20s, late teens, when I was making some type of money, right? One of the things I used to always tell myself is, hey, I'll save more when I make more, or I can't really save right now because I'm not making a lot. And hey, I can't really invest right now because I can barely survive on what I'm making. And that is such a dangerous mindset to have. So I want to share some things that, I learned over the years that I think that could help. And it's so easy to put things off into this bucket of like tomorrow or, bucket of this milestone. And one thing that I can promise you is this will save you years and years and years if you can learn to apply this today. There's a story about a coach who was trying to teach this person how to save 10% of their income. And this person was kind of like I was back then, which is like with the mindset of, hey, I can't afford to do that. I'm barely getting by with what I'm making now. I can't take away 10% of my income. So this is what the coach does. The coach brings this person and says, okay, hey, listen, what I want you to do is this month, I want you to save 1% of what you make and put it aside into a savings account. So the guy looks up kind of like taken back and he says, well, yeah, I guess I could save 1% of my money. So he does it the first month. Second month, the coach says, okay, now I want you to up it to 2%. And they do that for the rest of the year. At the end of the year, at the end of the year, they have a conversation. And what's crazy is the person was setting aside 10% of their income and looked at the coach and said, I barely even noticed. Like, it doesn't feel like it's any different. And it's because they did it so gradually that the lifestyle they were living didn't really change that much. So if you're somebody that, right now you don't feel like you can save a lot or can't save the number you want to save, start with something and gradually pick it up, because over time as you build that habit, you really won't even notice. This is one of those principles that you really want to learn now, because before your money and income start to grow, you want to have these basic philosophies down. All right, so let's talk about one thing that for me was a big stigma, and this is like the moral of money or making a lot of money or doing well, because I feel like depending on where you grew up, right, this subject is kind of taboo. It feels like you feel like guilty or it's a negative thing to make a lot of money or to be very successful. And here's my belief. I believe that money is only a magnifying glass, right? If you're a good person, you can be a great person with more income or more financial stability. If you're a bad person, then you'll be a terrible person with more money, more than likely. One of the things that I find true is the worst thing that can happen is that your money grows faster than you do. And what that means is, what I mean by that is if your income takes a lucky jump and it goes past your current financial literacy, and it goes past your philosophies that you have in place, it'll quickly come back down to where you are. And I believe that, and I've experienced that. So I urge you guys to take inventory of your current habits and routines, because if you're the person that I think you are, you're gonna continue to do better in life. You're gonna continue to live a higher quality of life year over year. And in my opinion, what'll help the most is start to get some of these financial philosophies set in stone in your life. That way, as your life scales, you're only going to be magnifying the good and the things that you already have down. The funny story, one of the speakers I listened to, his name is Jim Rohn. He's talking to this crowd. He's giving this lecture on, making a lot of money, but basically going broke. And it confuses some of the crowd because somebody goes, one of the crowd members looks up and says, Jim, how can you go broke making $5,000 a month? And, a pause goes across the audience. Jim looks up, smirks, and says, easy, you spend 6,000. And nowadays it's so easy to spend more than you have. With credit and all this stuff, you can easily go past beyond your means. That's why it's so important to learn lessons like this now. In closing, I know I talk a lot about money and I talk a lot about income because the things that are important to me, my family and different goals I have, money drives all of that. But don't get me wrong. I believe that the moment you start sacrificing your personal happiness and well-being at the expense of just money, then you should probably pause and reevaluate some things. But on the flip side of that, I do believe that we are destined to live the highest quality of life possible. And in order to do that, you need money. They say, how tall will a tree grow? And the answer is as tall as it can. And I believe that's true for people. People sometimes put these self-limitations on what they can do, what they can make, and what quality of life they can experience. Now, I'm not here to write that for you because that's not my job. This is all just my opinion anyway. So, if I'm wrong, hey, it's my opinion. But the good news is it's something that you get to decide. It's something that you get to write out. Hey, I want to live this quality of life. I want to earn this amount of money. And at the end of the day, it's just a number. So you just got to figure out how to get there. As always, so I hope you guys took some lessons away. I mean, these are a lot of things that I learned, some of the things I learned in my 20s and that have helped me out. Some I wish I would learn sooner, but hey, if I can help you guys out from my mistakes, then that works for me. But aside from that, if you think this helped you out, drop a like, drop a comment for the algorithm, you know what I mean? Also, send it to somebody that you think maybe needs to hear it. I'm just about adding value where I can and sharing some of my personal experience in my life with you guys. So with that being said, hope you enjoyed your Memorial weekend. I'm about to go to dinner. Love you guys. Talk soon. Oh wait, let me get Apollo. I just woke him up from a nap. Apollo. Hey, love. Look, say bye to the people. Look, say bye. Peace out, you guys.